Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Interactive Interview, Interactive Wrestling Radio, here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. It's been a few weeks since we did our last show. Our last show was the Barry Horowitz interview, which was pretty damn good, if I must say so myself. I think Nick would agree.
Yeah, I love when you pat yourself on the back.
There you go. And tonight, we're going to do...
We're a bunch of egomaniacs around here.
We are a bunch of egomaniacs around here. And what we're going to do tonight is our top 5 list returns. And tonight, the top 5 list will be the top 5 Randy Savage moments. Now, I'm going to say the word moments because Savage had a lot of things that happened in his career that were not necessarily just matches. Yes, his matches were always great. I can't name that many bad Macho Man matches. But we want to do the tribute the right way. We were going to do it about a month ago, but everything kind of got in our way, vacations and personal tragedies and the works. So here we are, and we're going to do a little tribute to the Macho Man tonight. So as we usually do it, what we'll do is one of us will name our top 5. The next one will name their top 5. Then the next one will name their top 5, and then we'll argue down until we have a definitive list of only 5 of the best Macho Man moments of all time. If you disagree, tell us so on our Facebook page, and you can find the link on WrestlingEpicenter.com. Anyway, who wants to kick off the list of the top 5 Macho Man moments?
I'll go ahead.
All right, Patrick wants to go ahead first this week.
All right, do you just want me to give me my whole list?
Yeah, just give the list, and we'll argue our reasons in the, I guess, throwdown.
Okay. All right. Number 5, Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth get married at SummerSlam 1991.
The match made in hell.
Well, it turned out not to be that great of a marriage, but for TV purposes, it was great. 1989, right before WrestleMania 5, the Mega Powers split, and Randy Savage turns heel on Hulk Hogan. Number 3, Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat. Not the match, even though that was a fantastic match, obviously. But if we're going to talk moments, I really like the part of the build-up where Savage attacked Ricky Steamboat with the ring bell. I thought that was a fantastically done segment and kind of the centerpiece of the time. Yes, that was the centerpiece of the entire feud. Number 2, Savage wins the title at WrestleMania 4. That's an obvious one. And number 1 kind of ties into number 5. Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth reunite at WrestleMania 7 following the career-ending match with the Ultimate Warrior.
Very interesting.
I'll go next. For me?
Nick's going to go next.
Yeah. All right. For me, number 5 is kind of an oddball one, but I think it kind of fits. Number 5 wins World War III and becomes the WCW World Champion. I mean, that was making him one of the few men to ever hold the WCW belt and the WWF.
Yeah, WCW reference.
Yeah.
Now, that was the one where Hogan got pulled under the ring, right?
Yeah, and right. On Nitro, they were going to show the clip of it, and apparently the only existing video footage of this pay-per-view event has a hole in the clip.
Yes, it does.
The only existing video footage. You couldn't go to Jim Bob's house down the block who taped it. You couldn't do anything like that. The only possible footage, despite the fact it was released on video a month later with that clip in it, had that clip completely cut out.
Well, James, you don't understand. They had to use the extensive Turner recolorization and department.
Ted Turner is going to colorize the moon.
Yeah, all right.
All right, let's keep going. I'm sorry.
Number 4 is the Mega Powers explode at WrestleMania 5. I want to include kind of the whole build-up in that, but I do think the match, because you had Savage and Hogan at WrestleMania 5, the quintessential 80s main event. Number 3 is actually on Patrick's list. It's his match with the Warrior at WrestleMania 7, and then the after effect as he reunites with Miss Elizabeth, turns babyface. I thought it was just a brilliant match, and then a wonderful moment, a nice, wrapping up of was basically a 5-year storyline at that point between he and Liz. Then number 3, the match with Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. And number 1, Savage wins the WWF World Title at WrestleMania 4. Those 4 great matches he had. and he becomes the man that prevents the $1 Million Man from winning the world title.
Yeah, and that's kind of the cool part about WrestleMania 4 is that, prior to that, and even a lot of the WrestleManias after that, the show was basically all about Hogan and, whoever Hogan was working with. But WrestleMania 4, that was Savage's night. I mean, that was really his show to, shine, and he was the first man to ever win the WWF Championship at a WrestleMania.
Everybody talks about passing the torch. Everybody talks passing the torch and, allowing somebody else to carry that torch. And if there ever was somebody that Hogan kind of gave the stamp of approval to, even though I think at that point he didn't necessarily need it, it was Savage. Because Savage growing up was one of the few guys who was on Hogan's level, even with the WWE push, you know what I mean? It was just like Savage and Hogan were pretty much neck and neck on a lot of things. Obviously, Hogan somehow maintained that better than Savage, but in the 80s, in the late 80s and early 90s, Savage was pretty much the, and after Hogan left, Vince kind of marketed him as the Babe Ruth of the WWF at the time, the living legend.
Even when he stopped wrestling, and he was basically just an announcer, he was like that guy, that that legendary figure that kind of that gave the company some level of credibility, even though he wasn't really doing all that much.
All right. So I'm going to give you my 5 Macho moments here. And let's start out with the predictable one for me. Ho! Macho Man defeats Hacksaw Jim Duggan to become the Macho King and subsequently ends up paired with sensational Queen Sherry. Unfortunately, both are no longer with us. Hacksaw's with us, but Sherry and Macho are no longer with us. But that was one of my favorites growing up. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Number 4, and it hasn't been mentioned, but I'm going to put it on there, even though it wasn't necessarily the best thing for Savage's career, or you can argue if it was or wasn't. I'm going to put down his feud with DDP. If anybody made DDP, it was Macho Man Randy Savage, and I will argue that until the end of time.
I'll go as far to say that was Savage's best work in WCW, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a story there. I mean, at Spring Stampede, where Savage and Page first went at it, Page went to Savage and said, "What's the finish going to be?" And he said, "Well, you hit me with the diamond cutter 1, 2, 3." And Page fell off his chair. I mean, Page didn't expect to win that match. Savage wanted to lose it. And that made Page a major player. And realistically, he narrates this WCW DVD that just came out, this Best of Nitro.
Which I hope is good.
Yeah, I have no hopes for it, but realistically, the only reason that he's seen as that poster boy of WCW is because Savage made him it. And I'll defend that to the end of time. Anyway, number 3, I'm going to go with Savage and Warrior at WrestleMania 7. Just amazing stuff. I'm going to go with number 2. There was a cage match that Savage had with Warrior in Madison Square Garden. Again, Savage Warrior, I know we mentioned it at WrestleMania 7. I loved their cage match, which happened at MSG. It was just phenomenal because Savage basically bumped around the world. He must have jumped off the top of the cage 3-4 times for Warrior to make it an extra special match. So that's number 2 for me. And number 1 moment for Macho Man, I'm going to go with everybody else here and say WrestleMania 4. That was, like everybody said, his night. I know I didn't put WrestleMania 3 on my list. I kind of figured everybody else would. So, but yeah, I think WrestleMania 4 was clearly his night. And by the way, why in the world did Savage go on, and then in the first round, what was it, Greg Valentine beat?
Yeah, they should have done Savage and Steamboat in the second round, and to this day, I don't understand why they didn't do that.
Yeah, Greg Valentine, I believe, beat Steamboat, if I'm not mistaken, with a roll-up,
yes.
And it was like, well, wait a minute, you could have had Savage, Steamboat too. Obviously, they weren't going to put on the same kind of matches as WrestleMania 3 because they had other matches to have, but at least Savage could have got the rub back and got the win back. But
it would have been a cool little reference to the previous year, kind of give Savage some closure on that storyline he was doing. And, et cetera, all that stuff. But
thinking back, what they probably were doing, because Vince was very protective at that point, was thinking that, well, if we put him in the ring with Steamboat, we could turn him heel because people remember the dastardly things he did, and that might have been Vince's thinking for not doing it, but my thinking is
nowadays they do it like in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think that.
There are so many face versus face matches now that it just doesn't matter.
I'm actually going to say this. I have to wonder if just that the reason they didn't do it was that their big fear would be that then people would be expecting them to top what they did at WrestleMania 3, which, it's a great match. Those two guys can have a great match with anybody, but it's very hard to capture lightning in a bottle twice, and maybe they didn't want whatever they would do at WrestleMania 4 together to overshadow what Savage was going to do later that night.
That very well could be. And I mean, the match he had with DiBiase is very underrated. That was a really good match. Those two worked really well together.
Well, James, you have to understand, WrestleMania 4 did nothing because Ric Flair and Sting outdrew the whole thing like by 200 million people, because everyone knows Clash of the Champions was much, 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 much more important than WrestleMania 4.
My favorite thing that James ever did on an interview when we had the Cornette teleconference with TNA, back when he loved TNA, and he could not hear us while our mics were muted, obviously. And I love how on the recording, when Jim Cornette's talking about Clash of Champions and how it beat up WrestleMania 4, you can just hear James going, WrestleMania 4 wasn't free, Clash of Champions was. It was just really funny.
Well, it's true. WrestleMania 4 was a pay-per-view event. Clash of Champions was shown on TBS. And while I loved the Clash of Champions shows, and I even liked that first show, you can't say, well, more people watch this, therefore it's bigger, when clearly you didn't make as much money as the other company because people paid to see the other one.
Right. And, I agree with you there. I mean, both were I'll say this, both were very good events. Both are, I think, required viewing if you were a fan of 80s wrestling, because, I mean, both had pretty landmark moments. Savage's title win, Sting and Flair, and the other stuff that went on throughout that night. But there's no argument, no matter how much you want to try to spin it, that WrestleMania 4 was the bigger event. It was the more high-profile event than anything WCW was doing for 3. That's like saying, that'd be like if the UFL put on a free football game during the Super Bowl. They might draw a nice crowd if they do it, but you're not going to say, oh, that was bigger than the Super Bowl.
Well, here is the UFL. I've used it.
What?
It's a poor man's NFL.
When does that air? Or where is that located? I don't hear that talked about at all.
Well, that's because it's decided to stay the hell away from Arizona because it doesn't want to get burned away. It's a small league with teams out of Omaha, Connecticut, Las Vegas. I mean, it's only in I think its third year. We'll start its third year this fall.
All those locations you just mentioned don't have NFL teams.
Oh, there you go. They wanted teams, and they went out and got them.
Yeah, well, that's part. See, the way they're building the league is they're actually being smart about it. Instead of trying to run head-to-head with the NFL, they're building a fan base on the side, going to places the NFL isn't, airing games on Saturday and Friday, so that way they don't compete heavily with the NFL.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, who knows? That could actually turn out to be very popular given the situation we're in right now with the NFL. But anyway, let's debate these things down. And I think we have to say that obviously WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 7 is going to be on the top 5 list because, frankly,
1 and 2. I think all three of us had both of those.
Yeah, and you cannot do a list about Randy Savage's greatest moments and not include WrestleMania 3 and the Ricky Steamboat feud. I mean, James, you basically admitted you had it on there because you knew you didn't have it on your list because you knew Patrick and I would have it on ours. I mean,
yeah, it kind of went without saying, I think.
Yes, I mean,
and there's so much that we could have put on this too. I mean, there's his matches with Lawler from Memphis and chicken wire cages, and I mean, there's some awesome stuff before he even went to the WWF that some people aren't even aware of.
He was the first person to pile drive anybody through a table.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked him about that in an interview, and he actually laughed. He's like, I think so. I asked him if he felt like he was kind of responsible for starting hardcore with that. And he started laughing. He's like, oh, yeah, I think so. So, I don't know, I just throwing it out there. But, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moments that Savage had that we could have put in there. Savage first joining WCW, that kind of was the, really, as a fan, I was scratching my head when he joined WCW. Because it was like, wow, really? Like, I get that Hogan's there because he wants a reduced schedule, but Savage now? We're getting some heavy hitters over here. So
I don't mean to mock you, but are you really telling me that in 1994 you were that big of you knew that much about the backstage workings of the business?
I knew Hogan I didn't think that let me rephrase this. I knew he wanted to do things like Thunder in Paradise, and that WCW was filmed on the same lot most of the time, which is kind of how that happened. So that I kind of drew two and two together with that. I wouldn't have said reduced schedule. I just would have said, it's close to where he does his TV show.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I liked, by the way. And anybody out there with TriStar Entertainment or any of those distributors who distribute those DVDs, explain this to me. Thunder in Paradise, you can get a box set that they sell, which is just the first 6 episodes, which they bill as the first 3 movies. But you can't get every episode. If you want every episode of the show, you got to buy from Germany. Only problem with that is it's been overdubbed into German. So there's 24 or 27.
There's no audience for Thunder in Paradise. Nobody wants it.
I would buy it in a heartbeat. I'd laugh my ass off at it. I own the box set of the cartoon show. It's phenomenal.
Wait.
But to be fair, I also own the Mr. T TV show.
The A-Team?
No, the cartoon show, Mr. T.
Oh, right. Yeah. Where he had kid sidekicks and shit. I think everybody had Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris had a cartoon show in the 80s.
Yeah, Rambo had a cartoon show in the 80s.
Yeah.
And Rambo's the freaking most violent movie you'll ever fucking see. He's not a heroic figure in the first movie. He's a tormented Vietnam vet that snaps and kills people.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, they didn't do the same. Back then, they didn't do the same graphic with Rambo that they did with the most recent one. I mean, that was kind of like, oh shit, he shot somebody, and there goes a piece of their intestine. It was like, oh my God, really? Do you really need to see that?
Anyway, getting back to Savage. Okay, so we've got WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 7, and WrestleMania 3. That's the top 3 so far. And are we going to throw WrestleMania 5 up there, or the feud? The whole Mega Powers feud.
I think you just got to sum that up as Mega Powers, really.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, let's just sum that up as Mega Powers because that kind of encompasses the heel turn and all that. So,
well, you want a great example of a year-long story done right, and the right way to build to a match you have in your head a year in advance. Go back and look at the way they built that feud, because it was not it was a natural beginning, a natural middle, and a natural end to it.
It was handled really well, and you could trace it all the way back to before WrestleMania 4 when they first formed up. So it was they put a lot of care into that.
If you've only seen the big pay-per-views and their, packages leading into the show, you don't know the whole stories of how that was presented. If you go back and watch the TV shows from 89, I think it was, they went to places obviously not to the standards of today with the suggestive nature, but they went closer to it than they ever had before and ever did in the years that followed. They did involve that, Elizabeth Hogan relationship into it. Jesse Ventura was pretty poignant with the things that he said. At one point they even made a point that Hogan put his hand on Liz's ass at the SummerSlam thing, which he actually did. So, I mean, they presented it pretty, they made it a realistic storyline, which made it stand out a little more in a very cartoonish era, I think I'm trying to say.
Well, even the turn that Savage did made sense. And sometimes I think the problem with heel turns is they almost come out of nowhere and they make no damn sense. Savage had a legit reason to be pissed off. Hogan ran out on him during a tag team match when he's trying to fight off, Boss Man and Shane.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be a little ticked off too if my so-called best friend ran away when we were in the middle of this big fight.
Well, he was carrying your wife to the back, though.
Right, but yeah,
even more, that adds up the jealousy.
Right, exactly. It should have been Savage who carried her back, but Hogan carrying her back, that led to the jealousy. I mean, it was really well put together, and the seed was planted from the very get-go with that. Even as far back as WrestleMania 4, Ventura was planting the seed already about the jealousy and the, who's really the main guy here. I mean, it was just really a well-done storyline, absolutely. Actually, the match itself was pretty good. I think that their match, and I don't know if anybody saw it, but they had a match in Paris that they put on a Coliseum video.
I've seen it.
I thought that was better than their WrestleMania match.
I need to see it again, but I tend to lean more towards the WrestleMania match because, that one was bigger, and B, the WrestleMania match means more to me because it was the first WrestleMania I ever watched. So. Yeah.
I think 3 was the first one I watched, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Everything's a blur to me. So anyway, we got the Mega Powers there, so we got one more spot left, and what do we want to put on there?
All right. Ah, boy.
So far, just to point it out, everything on it here so far is very WWF leaning. And Savage had a good run in WCW. He really did. I mean, he had great matches with a lot of guys. While Hogan...
We want to put on the moment where he slapped Tori Wilson.
He slapped Tori Wilson?
Yeah, apparently there's a story that, and this is when Tori was very new to the business. They were doing a backstage segment live, and Tori started laughing, and apparently he slapped her to get her to stop laughing.
And apparently she just laughed some more.
Wow.
Maybe.
Kelly version 1. I'm sorry.
She's at the Divas champion.
She was very nice. She really was. But, Jesus Christ, clueless. Completely and utterly clueless.
Well, I always go back to this. Anyone who wants to tell me, I used to have fights with the forum with this idiot that called himself women's wrestler fan. He insisted that Tori was a great wrestler. I said, this is a woman that, according to Raven, couldn't figure out a simple spot, which was trip Raven's opponent and run away.
Yes, Raven told that in a shoot interview. Yeah.
Now, I'm confused there. Because as far as I know, I don't recall Tori ever being Raven's valet.
It was probably during the Alliance, and it might have just been on house shows.
Okay, because I was really confused by that, because I was like, he was paired with the other Tori that nobody remembers, but she was a ninja for a while.
Yeah, I liked her. Terry Posh, or whatever her name is.
Yeah, and nobody knows where she is today.
She has a normal civilian life.
It may have been Taz, or it may have actually been, I think it was Taz, or Al Snow, or someone who did commentary on Heat during that. And he mentioned that it was a woman. And I think, and whoever the regular commentator, the play-by-play guy was like, you think that's a woman? Well, if it's a man, he's got the nicest pair of breasts I've ever seen.
Sounds like Al Snow.
Yeah, so...
I don't think Taz would say that. Taz would miss the point entirely and then talk about something inconsequential. No, that's a knock on TNA, by the way. The announcers have got to get with it. They are missing a lot of stuff. They started to miss the Bischoff-Sting-Anderson finish.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they effing well did.
No, but look, what do you want them to say? look, I'm sorry if evidently you need everything to be explained to you exactly how it plays out.
No, I got it right away. They didn't.
Right, because they were supposed to be confused. The idea was, wait a minute, the idea is they're trying to sell that they were confused by it too. They're trying to sell.
They were way too convincing that they were confused. I think they didn't get it at first. It was for SummerSlam 97-ish. I don't get it. I just don't
That's
get
one of my all-time favorites. Why they hit the Undertaker with the chair? I don't get it.
Anyway, so yeah, we have no WCW references on this thing so far, and
I mean, had a lot of good stuff in WCW, but I think just when you think of like the defining moments of Savage's career, you do kind of go to the WWE. I mean,
yeah, you're right.
I think sometimes the WCW.
Something else nobody's mentioned is feud with Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yeah, that was a fantastic dude.
How about the part where Savage was getting eaten alive by the snake?
See, I didn't think of those, and this is why I didn't mention it, because I did think about mentioning that feud because I love it so much, but, like the thing with the snake and the part where Miss Elizabeth got slapped, I tend to associate those more with Jake Roberts than I do Randy Savage. So, yeah, I mean, that's just me, but.
We could put it, Probably wants to put his whole feud with Flair on there. Because, they had it seemed like at one point between WCW and WWF, they feuded nonstop for 7 years, it seemed like.
That's true. I don't know if they really liked each other or really disliked each other, but regardless, they always had barn burner of matches. Their WrestleMania 8 match was really, really good.
And the storyline made sense. Tell me a guy that would not go nuts if a guy came out and said, before she married you, she was with me, and I know she still misses me. And they basically picked that story up in WCW when Liz actually turned heel and joined Flair and the Four Horsemen.
Yep, that's exactly what they did. That was
which I hated, by the way. When they turned her heel, I was so pissed.
I didn't mind it because she was wearing like tight black leather, and it was like, yeah, that's cool. Because she was always the prim and proper one, so it was kind of like, all right, little sluttiness, I like it.
Yeah.
To be honest, though,
they did the same thing with what's her name, Stephanie McMahon.
To be fair though, with Liz, I do think she kind of looks confused a lot in WCW. Where I think she necessarily wasn't happy with, she didn't really understand that she was supposed to be the bad guy or something, because there were just times where Flair would play it up, and you could tell, and Woman kind of got into it, but like Liz almost just kind of still looked there expecting to be a baby face.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, to be fair, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe. That was such a non-answer. It's ridiculous. So yeah, do you want to put? I guess you want to put his feuds with Flair or his matches with Flair.
Yeah, because they even did stuff that was pretty good when Flair hit Angelo Poffo, who was Randy's father.
I watched that today, as a matter of fact. That was Slamboree 95.
Yeah.
Leading into their Great America Bash 95 match.
Well, now we know where WWE got the idea to have John Cena Sr. get beat up every single time he's on the show. Seriously, how many times have they done that with Cena? You disrespect my daddy? Hit my daddy? I'm mad now.
Oh, boy. So, yeah, okay, so let's organize these things. I think 4 probably should be number 1. What do you think? WrestleMania 4?
That's fine.
All right, WrestleMania 4 is number 1. What do you think? WrestleMania 3, number 2, possibly? Or
3 or 7.
7? What do you think, Nick?
Okay, 3 or 7. It doesn't matter.
I think you got to put 3, because as good as 7 is, 3 I think most people have as the greatest match to ever take place on American soil.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that trumps all else. And I like number 7. I like the match of the Warrior. I like the aftermath with Sherry turning on him and Liz coming back and the beginning of him, becoming a good guy again. So, but I think 3 tops it because the match is just spectacular, and they have a really strong storyline going into it.
Mhm.
Alrighty.
So 4, 3, then 7, and then the Mega Powers, and then Super Flair.
I would go with the Mega Powers.
Yeah. So the top 5 most memorable Macho Man moments. Here we go, guys. The definitive list is complete. Number 5, his memorable matches with the Nature Boy Ric Flair, spanning both WWF and WCW. Number 4, the Mega Powers, including the entire storyline from WrestleMania 4 through WrestleMania 5. Number 3 is going to be WrestleMania 7, the retirement match with the Ultimate Warrior and the subsequent rejoining together with him and Miss Elizabeth, which actually saw women in the crowd crying, which I thought was pretty hysterical. Really.
They weren't plants either.
No, they were not plants. They were real people crying because it was a well-told story. By the way, I watched the movie Tron, the original.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a well-told story.
I've never seen it, so I can't tell you.
Holy shit. It's like, so who's this now? And is this guy really a computer? Well, that's part of the story. No, this sucks. Anyway, number 2, WrestleMania 3 and his match with Ricky Steamboat. We're going to include the entire feud there because it just was a well-told feud leading into an even better match. And number 1 is WrestleMania 4 itself. Even though it was mentioned in the Mega Powers, WrestleMania 4 featured Savage in a tournament, winning the Heavyweight Championship of the World, and the night really did belong to the Macho Man Randy Savage. And even though he was one of the most popular guys going into that show anyway, he came out eye to eye, level to level with the star of the 80s, which was Hulk Hogan. So he really, that's the night that kind of, whatever stamp of approval he still needed, and I don't know how much he still needed at that point anyway, he got it that night. But
Right, a Rooney.
But more people still watch Flair and Sting. Yeah, right. Anyway, okay, so there's your list, guys. So we got a few weeks, and almost a month of wrestling to discuss that we haven't discussed. And
well, I'll say this to sum it up: the last few weeks, I think WWE is absolutely abysmal to the point where it's damn near unwatchable. And I'll be honest, as critical as I've been on TNA or Impact Wrestling, I like a lot of the things that they're doing. And last week's show might have been their best Impact in a long time. Right. And I like a lot of the things that they're establishing. I like how they're building the Destination X pay-per-view. I love the idea of the Bound for Glory series. I think that is a fantastic idea. So, I'm going to shit on WWE, and I'm going to praise TNA a little bit because they've gotten better. I keep calling them TNA, but I guess they're not TNA anymore.
Are they TNA or are they not TNA?
All right, let me explain this for everybody. When we are talking about the show that presently airs on Thursday nights, it is now going to be replayed on Tuesdays. It is Impact Wrestling. Everything else in terms of house show tours, pay-per-views, is TNA. The problem is, you've got people that the problem is they really, really, really need to clarify it, because you do have people saying things like, I'm going to be the Impact Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion again.
That's correct.
It reminds me of the late 80s when the NWA and like the territories that merged together that were going to become WCW. And they picked up the name WCW, but NWA was still used from time to time, so it was really kind of strange.
Well, the way it worked, Patrick, is very similar, as a matter of fact. It was actually Saturday night was called World Championship Wrestling before it was called Saturday Night. So when you were watching WCW, what we now know or remember as WCW Saturday Night, you were watching NWA World Championship Wrestling. And little by little, by come maybe 91, 92, NWA slid off and it just became you're watching World Championship Wrestling.
Oh yeah.
That's how that came to pass.
And also at that time, we had the first split of the WCW and NWA World titles, where they did this storyline where Fujiwara, the guy who invented the Fujiwara armbar, I think, beat Ric Flair, and they did a dusty finish, only the way they did it was under NWA rules he won, but under WCW rules, Ric Flair retains the title by disqualification. And that was like split the two titles.
Well, as long as there's not going to be an Impact Wrestling champion and a TNA champion, because I'm already confused by a World Heavyweight and a WWE champion as it is, so I don't need to have 4 champions that I can't identify what the hell title they hold. It's just confusing.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they're going to go that far with it. I think what's happening is they're trying to rebrand it. They're trying to give the company a bit of a new identity, in pushing the whole Wrestling Matters slogan as hard as they can. And I think because of that, that's why they're pushing that Impact Wrestling name so much. But, I mean, you got to be somewhat careful because you also have Jeremy Borash, when he's announcing the matches, declare things like the Impact Wrestling World title. So I could see then, like, a guy backstage here and think, oh, well, I guess I should refer to it as the Impact Wrestling World title because I assume JB gets the cards from the writers.
Yeah. I think they're going to phase TNA out completely. They're just that's what it seems like. And I'll be honest, I like the new name. I like the rebranding because, let's be honest, TNA is a stupid pun. That's what the name is. So, losing that is not that big of a deal. And, it's
the
cool.
only thing that irks the shit out of me about that is if they do ultimately change the name, putting the DVDs on the shelf in alphabetical order will be a bitch and a half.
Dave, I now have to replace 30 to 45 T-shirts in my regular rotation.
What, your TNA shirts?
Yes. I've got the old school TNA logo. I've got the white
I have that one.
I've got the black and white. I got the USA one that for some reason Bob Armstrong and Road Dogg would always wear. Seriously, I've got the drip logo. Seriously, TNA. You gotta give me a break here, man. I gotta have to replace every T-shirt I freaking own.
You sound like that kid who posted this homicidal rant on YouTube because he had just bought an NXT shirt and they disbanded the group.
You mean
is Nexus disbanded?
This was the first time when Wade Barrett was the head guy.
Okay.
And then they took Wade Barrett out of the group, and they wasn't sure what the future of Nexus was going to be. And this guy ran, he said, "No wonder why you put the shirt down to $15. You were going to disband the group, you sons of bitches." It's pretty pathetic.
Hey, James?
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What the hell did you do to R-Truth, little Jimmy?
I got to bring this up. We want to talk about WWE Capital Punishment, which, no, I didn't see it, and no, I didn't go see it live, even though it's like 20 minutes from my house. I got text messages after the show was over from, one I got from a friend who went to the show, and he told me, dude, that might have been the worst pay-per-view main event I've ever seen live. And from what I'm hearing, getting generally negative reviews, I'm thinking, well, are you shocked? Look at who you put in the match. I mean, how many times do I have to say it? R-Truth is a piece of shit, and he does not deserve these massive pushes that he gets, yet he always gets them for some reason.
All right, and I'm going to say this. Patrick, I know you didn't see it, but if you have not seen the finish, it is the stupidest goddamn thing ever, because here's the finish. R-Truth goes outside. He sees a John Cena fan. He takes John Cena fan's hat and takes a sip from John Cena fan's water. He gives the water back to little Jimmy. Kid throws it in R-Truth's face. R-Truth is evidently part robot because he freezes and has a meltdown, which stuns him for 5 minutes as John Cena rolls him back into the ring and gives him the attitude adjustment.
That's funny. By the way, I see that way too often now where somebody will get hit with water or they'll get hit with a plastic bottle and they'll sell it like a bullet shot. It's like, look, it's plastic, okay? It doesn't hurt. It really doesn't hurt that badly. And in Truth's case, it's like, look, okay, it's not that painful. All right, getting spit in the face with water isn't going to kill you.
That started back in 97 Dennis Rodman, Lex Luger had Hulk Hogan in the rack at Uncensored 97. Rodman came in, sprayed Luger in the face with spray paint. And Luger didn't roll around holding his eyes. Oh. He passed out. Straight down. Didn't move. Rodman didn't hit him with the can. He sprayed him in the face. And it's like, wait a minute. I don't get that sell job.
Well, see, you have to remember this, James. Dennis Rodman was originally played in both Chicago and Detroit. So when he carried around spray paint, it was spray paint combination chloroform.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, so those that do not know, Chicago is a very violent place, and the Motor City Machine Guns originally dubbed themselves the Murder City Machine Guns.
Oh,
because
there you go.
That's Detroit better.
Ah. I'm going to go
here. Well, to show you how bad Chicago is, to show you how bad Chicago is, Christopher Nolan, when he was writing Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, he based Gotham City off of Chicago. So, there you go.
Which people now assume is New York, which drives me crazy. But, anyway, back to my point. If you watch a Nitro from 97, it was June 97, Hogan and Rodman were there. Rodman was actually a babyface in Chicago for some reason.
That'd be played in Chicago.
Well, yeah, but everybody hates Rodman. Anyway, he was about to chokeslam Rodman. The Giant was. A beer can comes down from what had to have been the upper deck and slams into the back of Giant's head. And he hits his knees. I mean, I don't believe for 1 second that was a sell job. I think he legitimately was knocked shit-faced by a full beer can shot to the top of the head, which you just see propelling end over end onto the screen. That was the Chicago crowd, and that's like, oh my God, I hope to never perform there, ever.
Well, I'm sure John Cena feels that way, although he's going to be performing there at the next pay-per-view.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'll let you guys wrap it up, but I'll see you guys next week, and we're going to have a guest coming up to help promote an upcoming NWA Legends Fan Fest, so we'll announce the guest if it pans out very soon.
All right.
Sounds good, man.
We're going to have a problem.
What's that?
Well, don't you remember what happened last time, and now I'm more fired up than ever.
What happened last time?
You don't remember what happened the last time Jim Cornette was on this show?
Oh, that's who we're getting. I didn't hear the name. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
No, actually, Patrick, that's not who. I don't know if that's who we're getting. I just said if it's Jim Cornette, we might have a problem because first question I'm going to ask him is, so, you're going to air at 3 a.m. on my network TV. Excited?
Is that where they're airing?
Well, no. I don't know. First off, for people that are trying to make this big deal that Sinclair Broadcasting means that they have now surpassed TNA. Ring of Honor is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting now. Sinclair Broadcasting owns a bunch of local stations. So at best, it's going to air at some, like, the time Jax used to air, the time Shotgun Saturday Night used to air. On the weekend, late at night. In like 22.
Still, I mean, that's a step up for Ring of Honor, but it's not USA or Spike TV.
Tell you what, it's not even actually airing on my network TV.
Okay.
So I mean, they're going to air like on different. There won't be. It's not like so I mean, it's a big step up, yes, but it's not this big step up that the bots have declared it to be.
Well.
Or
they love Ring of Honor, so what can you say?
Yeah, well, I'll just say this. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy Best in the World, which I am redubbing a loving tribute to TNA by ROH because pretty much every match has someone that has some tie to TNA.
Yeah, Generation E is going to be there, and they're still with TNA. Jay Lethal's going to be there, I think.
Yeah, Daniels. And ladies and gentlemen, Rhino versus Homicide. If that doesn't scream Impact match, nothing does.
Well, I'm thinking like Rhino. He doesn't. Like, he's not somebody I would picture them picking up.
Well, you have to remember, this isn't Ring of Honor anymore. This is Jim Cornette and Gary Juster restarting Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, well, let's get off of the bot world, and let's actually talk a little bit about a couple things I want to talk about. And you mentioned it a little bit, Patrick, but it's the Bound for Glory series. And I knew this would make you happy, Patrick, because one thing that you always talk about is you want wins to actually mean something in wrestling.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, TNA actually has an idea where if you win a bunch of matches, you get a world title shot.
What a crazy concept.
I
mean, wow.
Seriously, when they announced this, those YouTube videos have gotten me thinking now when I watch something. Gee, I wonder what Patrick's going to say about this.
I'm going to love it.
Yeah,
and if they execute it well and they stick to it, which I hear that house show matches have counted towards this, which I think is even better. I'm like, oh, thank God, the house shows have a purpose now. It's like, I just think this is a really, really great idea.
Right, and I agree with you. It's a good idea. Here are two things I would do. One, I would have a running total of the point system on your website at all, or on your Facebook or something, TNA/Impact Wrestling, because that would drive traffic. You could say, check out the TNA website for the updated standings this weekend, because you want people to be going to that website and seeing the shows you got coming up, and seeing, hey, is TNA going to be in my area? And also, I mean, you got to actually be very accurate with how you count this, because last thing you want to do is be kind of half-assed about it and have the guy you think is going to win have to make a late-minute run where he has to win 17 matches in one night.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think what they said is that the top four are going to be put in a four-way at, I assume, No Surrender.
Yeah.
And the winner gets the title shot Bound for Glory, which is fine. I think that's great. I think this could turn into an annual thing. I think it should be the template for the logic of how the show should work, where, title shots are based on wins and losses. Again, I think that's a very good idea, because one of my major complaints about wrestling today is that nothing, not just wins and losses, nothing means anything anymore, where, I'll use WWE as an example. All you have to do to get a shot at the U.S. title is be on the show. I mean, that's how Jack Swagger got his shot a few weeks ago. It's like, oh, he's there, so he gets the U.S. title shot. And the belts don't mean anything when you do shit like that. And it's just so easy to get title matches most of the time that it's like, well, who gives a shit? Well, now we have the system in place that's going to build up over the next 3 or 4 months or whatever, and the winner gets a title shot at the biggest pay-per-view. I think this is if they execute it well, I think it's a really good move by Impact Wrestling.
Right. And they have kind of, the last couple months, they've done something, they've tried to actually at least plant the seeds for this, where Mr. Anderson got his title shot at Sting by winning a Battle Royal. Kurt Angle beat Jeff Jarrett, and now he's the number one contender. So they've already kind of planted the seeds of, okay, to get a shot at our belts, you have to win matches. And now I'm really glad to see them do this, also because TNA wants Bound for Glory to be their biggest show of the year. They want that to be where, I got to see that one. That's where all the stories are going to crescendo. Sometimes they do a really good job of having something going. For example, AJ versus Sting was a natural Bound for Glory main event a couple years ago. And I would say even Joe and Sting, even though they kind of got that build started in the summer, was a natural build. Sometimes, though, you don't necessarily have that going. I kind of, for example, going into Bound for Glory 1 was going to be Kevin Nash and Jeff Jarrett again, and Nash had just returned from, his latest layoff from TNA. And last year...
to be fair, the first Bound for Glory, I kind of felt like it was more like the beginning than the end, because they had just gotten on the Spike TV and they were just introducing people to the product. So they didn't have a whole lot of long build-ups for that one, but I understood it.
Yeah, and last year's a really good example. I mean, I like Kurt Angle, I like Jeff Hardy, I like Rob Van, why am I saying Rob Van Dam? I like Mr. Anderson, but they actually had something going, which was the Kurt Angle climbing his way into the rankings thing. Then I think they panicked because they were like, "Oh shit, we want the belt to leave with the guy with Hardy since he's going to join Immortal." So then they, did the whole RVD gets attacked and skewered and fricasseed thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that. This is a great way to build up for Bound for Glory. It's a great way to involve the fans because they can follow, especially if they put it on the website. I'm going to harp on this, TNA. Put it on the website to follow along because people are going, that's something that wrestling doesn't have. There's no way to really follow along week to week in terms of like a stat or something. And I'm not saying that's going to make all the difference in the world, but it's a nice thing to do if you can follow along and see, oh, hey, Rob Van Dam's in the lead for the Bound for Glory series, but Samoa Joe has the most submissions, so he's earning more bonus points or something like that, or even if you want, even like every week on Impact, do like a 90-second, and now your Bound for Glory series update after the most recent house shows. Gunner, Devon, and the Pope have all scored victories, earning an additional yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, it's all a matter of execution. I think the idea is great, but they got to stick with it. They got to execute it well, and make sure that everything falls into place all right. I thought the ranking system was a great idea last year, but they didn't execute it as well. So, time will tell to see if TNA actually does this well. But like I said, I'm really excited for it. And when they announced that they were going to do this, I thought it was a great, great idea.
Right.
And I got to say this, I like some of the things that they're doing with Destination X.
Right. I like it, too, because they've actually made a big deal out of the X Division the last couple of months. Sometimes one of my biggest complaints with some people that they're so quick to harp on things, and I admit I'm guilty of it, too, sometimes with WWE. But they're so quick to harp on things that they just look at it short-sighted. When Abyss won the X Division title, everyone went, "Oh my God, Abyss won the X Division title. That's for the little guys to high fly. Abyss doesn't fly. Why TNA?" And they're realizing, oh, hey, wait a second. The X Division title is actually being mentioned more on the television show than it has in years.
Yeah, and some of the other things they're doing, I like this idea for the tournament where they have guys, get a series of wins to earn a contract. I think that's a great idea. I thought the match they had on Impact last week was pretty good, even though it's three guys I'm not huge fans of, Austin Aries, Kid Cash, and Jimmy Rave, but it was a good start.
I'll say this about Austin Aries. I have always felt this. He is a guy with a tremendous amount of talent and potential, and the kind of guy that would make sense as an X Division champion. That said, he has got one of the worst heads on his shoulders when it comes to his relationships with companies. The way he supposedly has acted in TNA, the 2 times they've given him a contract previously, is ridiculous. He goes, well, I can be late for a pay-per-view that I'm opening because I'm more loyal to ROH. Oh, that's
stupid.
Yeah, and then there was the whole stupid shit about, you want me to come in and work on my birthday?
Yeah.
Austin, most people after the age of 18 work on their birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so please, but don't get so bullshit. So I'm hopeful that now that he's no longer with Ring of Honor, and maybe he's had a couple years to grow up, and maybe certain other people aren't in TNA right now, that they'll say that that maybe this will work out. I don't believe Austin Aries will ever be a world champion. I don't think that he has that kind of potential, but I do think he'd be a pretty good X Division champion given his style.
Yeah. And that's always been my problem. I never understood why Ring of Honor really got behind him as the guy. And he's their best guy, and they had him at Joe's undefeated streak and all that shit. And I'm like, really? This is the guy that you're going with? I just never saw it. But yeah, he'd work fine as a more mid-card guy or an X Division guy. I think he'd be great.
I think what happened with that to a certain extent was that he had some pretty good matches with Ron Danielson. And I think they originally planned Alex Shelley to win the belt. And then Shelley left for a little while. And I think they wanted to keep going with the whole Generation Next thing being the one to beat Joe. The idea being, oh, here is Generation X, and now it's the Generation Current. So they said, okay, we're going to give it to Reese.
Well, and another thing at Destination X, to build off of some of the things I'm liking, we might finally get that Jerry Lynn Rob Van Dam rematch. What'd you say?
I wouldn't count on it, given what just happened to Jerry Lynn.
What just happened to Jerry Lynn?
Nothing. I'm making it up.
Yeah, I could tell. I finally learned to tell when you're joking.
All right. Well, yeah. So we got that. We got Destination X doing pretty well. And in the WWE, the fire has gone out in CM Punk's eyes.
Well, supposedly he's leaving. I don't know if this is part of a storyline or what, but there have been talks that his contract's coming up. He acknowledged it on TV, and he might be done with the WWE following the picture. We'll see. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they were working this into a storyline, but he's not winning the title from Cena, no matter what. I mean, let's be honest here.
I'm stepping in for a second here, guys. I got to ask a question.
Uh-oh.
Shoot.
Yeah, this involves CM Punk.
Uh-oh.
Now, we got the bizarre Karma thing, right, where Karma got this tearful goodbye after being there for 3 weeks. If they're doing the same thing for CM Punk, and by no means am I saying that CM Punk wouldn't deserve kind of like an appropriate farewell, because he's a hell of a worker, and, like I said, he's one of the few guys who proved me wrong. That said, why on earth would they announce that he's leaving? I don't get it unless he's not. That's the only logical thing. He would have to be lying for this to make any sense.
James, this is WWE we're talking about. This is a company that probably will now say that wants to give the rub to John Cena for getting rid of CM Punk. I think he's leaving. I think you look him in the eyes when he's doing TV, and you can just tell the fire's out. He doesn't care right now. I think he needs a break, and it will be interesting to see what he does next. But I think he's leaving simply because they booked him horribly. For the majority, the last couple of years have just been horrible for this guy.
Since he dropped the title to Undertaker.
Yeah, which fuck you, Undertaker. But I just don't think he cares anymore, and we've seen it a couple of times, with most notably Chris Jericho.
Yeah, that's
where
exactly what I was going to say.
For a little while, you kind of get away from this business. You take a breath. You move. You do something else with your life, and hopefully that fire. And then you realize, I really miss doing this for a living, and you come back.
Yeah, and you know what? It's that way for fans, too, though. And we were talking a little bit about it, and I don't know if you guys mentioned it off the air, but, I wasn't here anyway, but TNA just celebrated their 9-year anniversary legitimately, 9 years to the day, just a couple of days ago. And I told Nick, one of the reasons why in the early days I was so gung-ho for TNA is because when WCW closed, I didn't have a home for wrestling, so I didn't watch any. I didn't just turn on Raw or WWE. I frankly boycotted it because I was so pissed off. And, my side lost. I can get over that. But did it really have to go that way? So, anyway, I think that even fans like me, who is an Uber fan, needs time away for a while. And I would assume that's the same thing for a performer. If you do it so much that you get burnt out on doing it, then yeah, you need some time away. Unfortunately, WWE doesn't seem to make exceptions for guys to take time off the way that they used to. And that's why a lot of characters do get stale, and that's why a lot of guys look like they get burnt out. I mean, we keep talking about these guys like Savage was there for 6 years, but even after 6 years, he took time off. He took a year off before he started wrestling again. I mean, you have to have that time away to recharge your battery, and WWE set up the way it is, which is still the the template from the Monday Night Wars of every Monday night we're going to be. It's just, it's running the product has become stale. The performers look bored, and it's just it's time for a change. Unfortunately, it's been time for a change for about 10 years, and nobody else seems to realize it except, people like us.
Well, I mean, you look at somebody like John Cena. I mean, he's literally having the same match over and over and over again, and he's just not interested in doing anything other than his standard match. Because he's, whatever. But even the top guy is like, burnt out.
Even just look at Christian recently. We had a chance to have someone new in terms of WWE on the top and be the champion. 5 days later, he drops the belt to Randy Orton. They couldn't even wait till the next pay-per-view to do it.
But they're going to milk that feud till as long as they can, because my God, they're having another pay-per-view match, aren't they?
Yeah, this in a couple weeks. And you know what I honestly think is happening? I think they want to see if Edge is willing to come back and have one more match, and then have him beat Christian. But they're going to milk it, and then if Edge is willing to come back, which I don't think will happen, Christian will drop the title to Edge.
Hey, whatever delays Mark Henry getting into that spot, I mean, that's because, you look at SmackDown, what the hell else are they going to do over there?
Oh, God, don't talk to me about the Mark Henry big and slow feud.
Mark Henry, yeah, push number 812, it's coming.
Oh, God, like, seriously, when they drafted Henry to SmackDown, and it looked like they were going to give him a big heel push at first, I was like, God damn it, no. Then that kind of seemed like it petered out, and I was like, oh, good, we were saved. Nope, we're just going to get something so much worse. Mark Henry versus The Big Show. The only thing I want to see these two guys compete in is an eating contest.
Who wouldn't want to see that?
No. Mark.
Oh, and they got a fake Barack Obama on their pay-per-views now because Vince McMahon thinks it's funny.
How much money do you think they wasted on that? I mean, one of my biggest problems with WWE is just the amount of money it appears they waste. And it seems like every couple months they'll cut somebody because creative has nothing for you. Sometimes being, we don't want to keep paying you. I'm thinking, well, maybe you think about the next time you spend money on a Barack Obama impersonator, fake Secret Service, building a coal mine, and all the other ridiculous shit you come up with.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Like, I hear about things like that, and I see things like that, and it just makes me go, I don't know what to say to this.
But you know what? I actually want to give the WWE a compliment. I know everyone's down. I know hell just froze over. But I'm actually going to give the modern WWE a compliment. They have done a pretty good job handling Alex Riley's face turn.
So far, so good. Yeah, I do like Alex Riley.
Yeah, it made sense that Miz started insulting him. He snapped. He then got to hold his own with Miz in a fight. He actually beat Miz in the fight. Sometimes the biggest problem is they act like they're about to push a guy, and he gets laid out. And they're like, yeah, he's made. No, he looks like an idiot because he can't beat the guy you had him fight with. And then they didn't have him all of a sudden become like, hey, everybody, I'm Alex Riley, and I'm sorry for being a jerk the last couple of years. Please like me. They even had like John
What they do with all their baby faces, just about.
Even had like, I think it was Austin or Cena even said, hey, I don't like Alex Riley, but I got to give him respect because he found his balls. And then he actually beat Miz at the pay-per-view. They've actually done a pretty good job of building this kid up.
Yeah, now if they wouldn't shout Miz out to Roddy Piper for some reason, maybe it'd be okay.
Yeah. Oh, God. look, Roddy Piper, you are one of the greatest of all time. But I never want to see you on my TV again unless I'm watching a DVD of something old.
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same way.
He comes out, he looks like he's fat in the stomach, and he somehow is so gaunt in his face. And he was one of the greatest talent of all time, but he's not anymore. I mean, especially he comes out and he mumbles something, and then he beats some young guy.
Yeah, it's not good. But I'm about ready to hit the sack. I'm ready to go to bed. So is there anything else you want to talk about before we sign out for tonight?
You know what? I think we pretty much nailed it all. Everything we kind of wanted to cover. So I think we should just say goodnight. I got to go to work anyway, so.
All right. You still there, Nick?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for spending the night with me, Nick, on the show. It's fun to be back. Thank you, James, for setting this up, doing the Macho Man shit with us. It was great. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you all next week.